Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending the Economic Development Authority meeting at City Hall here this morning, Thursday, April 6, 2023, 7:30 a.m. Please, James, will you, I'll call this meeting to order. Will you call the roll, please?
Evans. Beezer.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kirsch.
Here.
O'Day.
Here.
Yeager.
Yes.
Grasula.
Here.
Very good. So we're going to make, we have just one slight change to the agenda here. We are going to swear in Mr. Justin Grasula. Welcome aboard. Thank you for taking this adventure, and thank you for coming this morning. So first thing, unless we have any other changes, we'll look for an adoption of the agenda with that revision.
So move, Johnson. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please,
So
yes.
with a consent calendar, is this the time that I pull out an item, or do I wait?
We certainly could. I'll move on to the consent calendar after this oath of office, and we could pull it out, but we can do it now if you'd like also.
I just had some questions with the play deck, so if we could discuss
Very
that
good.
one.
So,
Thank you.
All right, we'll pull out Blade Deck first, and we'll bring it up before we motion to approve the calendar. But let's get them sworn in. Oh, I got to approve the agenda with that motion. So, any other changes to the agenda? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Okay, here we go.
Justin, if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
I, Justin Grasula, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Brainerd Economic Development Authority
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Brainerd Economic Development Authority
of the City of Brainerd,
of the City of Brainerd,
Minnesota,
Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Which item did you want pulled out? That'd be for,
It looks like it might already be pulled out on our new business. Sorry.
yeah, I was going to, yeah, looks like it is.
Okay. All right.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to item number 4. This is our consent calendar. Notice the public, all matters listed are considered routine by the commission will be enacted on by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the commission votes on the motion be adopted by roll call. This includes item 4A, approval of the minutes, 4B, financial reports, 4C, DDBC report, and 4D, Swanson Hascamp consulting report, and 4E, Visit Brainerd report. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this will be voted by roll call. James, please.
Bevins, Beezer,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kirsch,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Yeager,
Yes.
Grasula.
Yes.
Very good. And that motion carries. So we will move on now to item 5A. This is to approve the amendment to the Visit Brainerd Shared Services Agreement. James, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. At the March 9th special EDA meeting, city staff presented a framework guide that separated action steps and assigned consultants for the completion of each step. Visit Brainerd discussed essentially creating a branding package, including a slogan and logo, was not part of their original agreement, but could be done with no additional cost by replacing it with assisting with creating a marketing strategy. The EDA then directed staff to draft an amended agreement and bring it back at the next meeting. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the amended shared services agreement with Visit Brainerd.
Very good. Thank you, James. Do we have any questions for staff? All right. Any discussion on the item? And if not, we'll be looking for that motion to approve this amended shared services agreement.
So moved.
We got a motion by Mr. O'Day. Is there a second? We have a second by Ms. Beezer. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5B, this is an update on the consultant's framework. This will be a questions only, most likely here, but James, will you please lead us through this as well?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So with this, I'll just provide kind of an overview of what was included in the packet. So city staff has been working with Swanson Hascamp to prepare a property list for implementation on the property website, updating properties as well as making sure we have a completed list. This past week, staff did meet with SHC to review the design of the web page and discuss metrics to rank each properties. The metric will separate properties into 3 categories and create an order to it. Categories will be separated into undevelopable, potentially developable with challenges, and developable properties. So with that, they'll still have an order and a numeric metric as well. So the metric as well as the website will be presented to the EDA at the June meeting. Regarding Bladec, they have provided a summary of the 2022 BRE interviews and will be discussing that later in the agenda. They are also working on potentially a new direction for the 2023 BRE interviews. The interviews from 2022, city staff will be using that to potentially identify other areas for needing program and funding, potentially from the EDA or city. Visit Brainerd worked with city staff to amend the shared services agreement to help the EDA fulfill all of its goals that were set at the beginning of the year, and has begun working on an EDA website. And DDBC has reached out to the city of Brainerd. I know they're working on their application and has been collecting data, specifically how many rentals are in the downtown area. With that, I can certainly answer any other questions from the EDA.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Any questions here for staff? Please.
When is the next consultant meeting?
I'll have to look that. We'll send an email out, but I believe we did set it at the last meeting.
Okay, I just was curious. I'd sent an email to Jennifer Hascamp about just like creating a unified directory specifically for downtown, but I mean, it could be more citywide, but I just was wanting to follow up on that. I can either attend the meeting or if Brenda will be there with you.
Okay, yeah, we can reach out to you to attend the meeting as well to work on that part of it.
Because just moving forward, it'd be nice to, between what DDBC is doing and what she's doing and what the city data is, it'd just be nice to get it consolidated in one spot.
Perfect, that sounds good. I'll mark that down.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for James or staff? Very good. All right, hearing none then, I think we're going to just move on to our next item here. This will be item 5C. This is an update on the reallocation of the deed funds. James, please.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the EDA subcommittee met on March 20th to discuss the reallocation of $54,187 of the deed Main Street grant funding as 2 businesses declined funding. City staff and Bladec updated the subcommittee on the progress of all other recipients. Bladec highlighted 3 businesses in particular that may have issues with the grant allocation and 9 other businesses that have been in contact with the Initiative Foundation but have not submitted all required documentation. The subcommittee, with that, after discussion, would like to impose a deadline on applicants and reallocate the funds all at one time. A subcommittee meeting has been set for June 2nd. Due to that scheduled meeting, as well as potentially imposing a deadline in the applicants, the subcommittee would like the EDA to meet 1 week later from their scheduled meeting in June. So with that, staff is recommending approving May 31st as the deadline for businesses to submit all required documentation to the Initiative Foundation for the Deed Main Street grants, and secondly, to move the regularly scheduled EDA meeting on June 1st to June 8th at 7:30 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik, and I'll just give just a little quick background on this also, just for a little further information. The general idea of how these dates were created is we worked from what we've really felt was the last chance deadline backwards to give the applicants the opportunity to right up kind of to the last moment to be able to get their work done, to apply for these funds, or for us to actually be able to reallocate the funds that are not taken. So the one date meeting versus multiple date meetings basically stems from this is just such a fluid process that's happening. We literally could be meeting weekly if we wanted to move money from one to another. So this was just the intent of this motion was just to streamline the process and to do this in kind of one motion versus just meeting over and over again to reassess this. So do you have anything to add on that, Gabe?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this deadline of May 31st is a hard-ish deadline where there are some businesses that have made almost no communication yet. So we're trying to nudge those people along to get their paperwork in. But there are some projects that are bigger and are going to take longer, that they may not have absolutely everything done by May 31st, but that we're still going to keep them in the funded column, hoping that everything works out for them.
Yep, absolutely. Well said. Yes, please, Mr.
That was my
O'Day.
question, I guess. I see a lot of these that are still in white on this list that say, still in beginning stages, no new information, plan for these projects to still move forward. And they're all great projects, as far as I can tell, but at what point do we lose that money if we don't reallocate it? I know it's not this date that we're talking about, but what date would that be?
Yep, November, basically. Yeah, and at this point, I think I'm going to ask Mr. Glynn, Tyler, just jump in here and just give us kind of a brief overview of the question at hand here, just kind of the dates and how they're working, if that's all right.
Yeah, so November 1st is the drop dead date from deed to the Initiative Foundation, that if projects have not started by
Shovel in the ground by
shovel in the
November.
ground, hammer on the wall kind of thing, if they haven't done that by November 1st, the money from the Initiative Foundation goes back to deed.
Okay.
So that's where the committee looked at those timelines and just made a determination that, honestly, if somebody hasn't done anything by May 31st, what are the chances that they're going to get bids and be able to get work done prior to that November 1st deadline? So,
Right.
On that list, we have communicated with all of those that were in white. We've heard back from every one of them except one to this point. And so that was earlier this week. We sent out emails to them communicating the language that you guys had laid out for us in the subcommittee meeting. So we've heard back from all of them but one. So that's a good nudge forward, I think, for us. So
I think the one that we need to keep an eye on, obviously, is this $200,000 towards the 805 Laurel Apartments, which I think everybody wants to see happen. But if we lose $200,000 of the $765,000, that would be a huge loss. So hopefully it happens, but I don't know if they're far along enough to get something done this year.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, on that, we talked about that, because that's obviously the big one, right? It's the biggest project we funded. If that one falls through on, say, like October 20th, there are enough already permitted projects that applied and didn't get funded in the corridor that we could redistribute $200,000 the final week. So we have some flexibility there to make sure we're not going to lose this money.
Yeah, we definitely have plenty of places for backup plans for money to land if we wanted to.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
if I could
please,
just
Mr.
interject.
Charpentier.
So I haven't been in contact with the developer. I urged him about 3 weeks ago to get in contact with Initiative Foundation, with Don Hickman, since they are really the ones that are holding the funds, and just explain where he's at in the project. The developer is waiting for some further guidance from Minnesota Housing on what kind of funding they're going to get out of this budget cycle, which, again, legislative session, they've got to be adjourned by end of May 20th, I think it is. So he is waiting to figure out how much money he can apply for from Minnesota Housing. He has explained that to Don. Don has said that if they don't start that project for a while yet, he's not worried about the funding. And that was the message that I was relayed back to me on March 28th by the developer. So they are in contact. That's the biggest thing, I think, at this point, to make sure that Initiative Foundation knows what's happening with that project, to keep them abreast of that. We do believe that there will be at least demo that can happen this year on that. I wouldn't envision the rebuild to probably start this year just because of funding with Minnesota Housing. That being said, we certainly could, but we do have a meeting set with them this coming Monday to discuss with the city and with the HRA to discuss where they're at in the project, when they're going to be getting bids and trying to flush all of that out. So we are keeping a very tight kind of timeline on them to make sure that we can utilize those funds. We don't want to have those go back either.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charpentier. Any other questions or discussion points here? Yes, please.
I was just wondering if any of the projects if they're realizing they need to change the scope of their project at all, is that something where they would just submit that change to the subcommittee to review? Or do they just basically deny the funds and then maybe reapply if we have it open it back up again? I just know there's a couple projects on there that look like they might be stuck in trying to figure out another way to use the funds, but maybe not within the scope that they initially proposed.
Yes, thank you. Tyler, can you address this for?
Yeah, the one in particular is the Yashur kombucha. That one is going to change. We have communicated with them, sent them back a new revised application, indicated what they needed to do if they were going to change their project and scope. So we haven't gotten that back from them yet, but we're in communication with them right now. We'll bring that back to the subcommittee as soon as we receive something from them, because if there is a material change, the Initiative Foundation has indicated that as long as the project still meets the requirements and the subcommittee feels that it's still a viable project to fund, then they can change the work that they're doing. But as long as the work that they're doing still meets the requirements, the Initiative Foundation is okay with the change.
Okay. And then how is this just getting communicated, the deadline information, just by email to the project leads?
We have emailed, we've called, we've been in communication with everyone to this point. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To your first question, Marie, the subcommittee addressed the changes that Big J's had to their proposal, and Tyler hit it pretty correctly with it. They're still available to be funded. It's still possible. They just need to get us a revised work plan, and then we'll review that as it comes in. And as long as it still seems viable and like a good project for downtown, the money is still allocated to them. But when the projects change so much, the dollar amounts might change. So we just need that paperwork to know how much is being funded or not.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
Only one clarification, with the May 31st deadline, can we just change it to substantially complete for the documentation to give the wiggle room that sounds like everyone is?
I don't see any reason why not. Tyler?
No, yeah,
Just to
absolutely.
help people understand.
Yeah, definitely a subcommittee decision, but we can communicate that depending on what the subcommittee decides is substantially complete.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so we're looking for a motion here. I'm going to break these apart in two motions just in case the date doesn't work out as follow-up motion. So we'll be looking for a motion to approve the amended deadline here. It sounds like with just a little bit of a language change potentially. So if somebody would like to take a stab at it, certainly.
I'll motion to include a deadline of substantially complete for May 31st for the application process.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Well, second.
We have a motion, a second by Mr. O'Day. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote here. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, portion number one carries here. We'll move on to number two, which is to move the regularly scheduled EDA meeting on June 1st, which would be June 1st at 7:30 to June 8th at 7:30. So, sorry, still a 7:30 meeting, but.
Sure it doesn't work for Tony?
Morning's work.
Okay.
I'll motion.
We have a motion to approve the amended date. Is there a second? And a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Very good. And we have a new date. Okay, with that, we will move on here to item 6. This is our new business. 6A is a presentation, a summary of business retention evaluation interviews. This will be Tyler. Please set us up for this, Tyler. Thank you.
James, you just want
Or
to go
James.
through this?
James.
Okay. Yeah, so it was just, as you guys remember back in November when we submitted our report to you, we identified themes inside there of some of the responses that we were getting from our business visits. And so we identified those themes. James and Jennifer had asked if we would just identify a little bit more detail around some of the responses that we were getting. And so we did that. We put in, now obviously we don't identify the business names. We are very clear with them when we're meeting with them that the information that they provide and that they share with us is not something that we are going to publicize. So we just broke these down, identified some of the comments that were being made and wanted to share with you guys just the kind of the overall sentiment. There is some, as you get outside of the downtown corridor, there's some conversations around funding, and we've all had this conversation as a group. It's no secret that some of the businesses that are located outside of the river to rail corridor are wondering where is there funding that could be potentially available to them for projects. You know, obviously the sack and whack and the permitting fees being waived for projects that are getting done downtown is a sticking point for some businesses that are outside the corridor. They make that quite clear, which is I understand that. It's something that, you know, we will continue to talk about. Well, I know that this body has made that comment in other meetings that we've had here. So, you know, if there's opportunities that we can, you know, potentially move some funding to projects that are outside the corridor, if there's an opportunity to extend river to rail, I mean, we can take away the name river to rail. We can just extend those services outside the downtown corridor. I know that would be something that would become, you know, would be very welcome to our business community as projects start to change. You know, some of the other comments, obviously there's some positive comments as well. You know, there's some groups that are very pleased with the work that gets done here, the direction that is taken by this board and the group of volunteers and the work that you guys do. It's met very positively, and in some statutes, there's other in some communities, or not communities, sorry, some businesses, and you know, I guess I really don't want to delve too deep into some of these comments. We just write the comments down as they're given to us and share them with you. So, but I think it's good feedback. I think it's certainly, there's some comments that get made that are, you know, some people get a little irritated sometimes. So they make some comments, and we wouldn't be doing our work if we didn't jot them down. So just wanted to share those with you guys. If you've got questions about them, I mean, we can certainly address them, but I think that the work that we continue to do, the work that this board continues to do, is addressing some of these issues that we hear on a fairly regular basis. So if there's any comments that you guys want to make about those, otherwise, if not, there is another document that we provided at the beginning along with our memo, and our memo is outlined in relation to what we'd really like to, what we mentioned at the end of last year, is how we'd like to proceed with some of these visits that are going to occur this year, and focus our attention on Washington Street. I know that Commissioner Bevins had mentioned that, you know, he'd like to see some activity or some conversations with that to get that jump started for the business community. What we've provided for you is just a draft. Kind of some direction that we've found. We've done some research with other communities that have gone through projects to this. Not many cities have gone through a project to this scope and size, you know, where we're going to see it, you know, especially in 2 phases. You're going to go, you know, from I don't know which direction are they going first. Are they coming down from the west to the east? I believe they're starting on that end of town. So as they do this in phases, we'd like to, you know, use some of the resources that we're going to have now and going to certainly have during the summer to craft some questions, ask some very specific things. We've got information that we've gleaned from other communities that have done this. We've also have some information from MnDOT as to projects that they've worked on and how they've tried to help the businesses in these corridors as they're getting ripped up, and how we do this. So if you want to, James, if you want to scroll to the second document there. And again, this is just a proposal, and I'm looking for feedback. And if you guys want to read this, digest it, and, you know, give us some feedback as to some direction you'd like to see with this. But our goal with this is to be very direct, and to try and identify what we feel, or what the business community is going to feel are their pain points. And if they come back with identifying what some of their pain points are through this process, and how we can help, and how we can bring this information back to this board, back to the city, but also use it for some of the work that we're doing in identifying needs that these businesses may have. We can get this out in a couple of different manners. We can go door to door. We can send this out. We work on trying to get email addresses, trying to notify them that way. We can mail these out. We can do a lot of different things. The mailings that we did for, that Visit Brainerd did for the Main Street worked pretty well. I think the subcommittee members at least say, we got a nice response out of that. I think that was a very targeted. People start to realize it when you put it in a manner in which it's not spamming them or not, just junk mail. We can do this correctly. I think we can start to get a really nice response out of this. But I'm looking for your guys' direction on the document that we've provided, and if you would like us to target that area starting here early spring and into the summer. We're going to have an intern this year. We just hired another staff. She started a couple of weeks ago. And I know that the city wants to do some of these visits. Some of the staff want to do these visits as well. And, we're certainly open for the EDA members to join us as well. But that's really what I'm looking for, is some feedback from this group to see if this is the direction you'd like us to go. If we've missed the mark with this, let us know.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Gabe, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tyler, have you worked with Eric on this at all? No, the HRA is looking at doing a small cities grant
Okay.
in the Washington Street corridor during the year of Washington Street construction, 25, 26, whenever that is. So there are specific questions that the HRA does need to fill out our applications. And if we could slip some of those in here, we'd be killing two birds.
Happy to, absolutely. Eric and I are actually meeting after this. We could add this to our talking points to our agenda, because I think that's perfect. I think the timing couldn't be better with something like this. And this is just our proposed target, but I think this is an area of need, certainly. And if it can tie in with some of that work, I think that'd be fantastic.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Gabe. Yes, please.
Just one error on there. It says project starting 2025. I believe the entire thing is 2026.
2026.
But going back to your business visits and the comments specifically regarding most of our programming being downtown, I do agree with that. I think that we should start talking more about what we're already talking about with Washington Street, but that's a main thoroughfare. So if we could have some type of programming for Washington Street, South 6th, you could add in Oak and Mill Avenue. I think we should start to expand some of those services to those main thoroughfares through the city. I don't know exactly what we can do at this point with the amount of funding we have left this year. But something we should look into for next year is some type of operation that would mimic the river to rails for some of our main streets.
Mike, and I'll ask this of you and Gabe, would that be a council directive? I'm just thinking, because this council adopted the river to rail footprint.
It could be.
I believe it was based on EDA recommendation.
Okay. I think that seems right. It was 2018, 17, 18, somewhere in there.
Long time ago.
Good. Any other comments? Yes, please.
First off, thank you. The documentation that you sent was really good to get that feedback. I'll start with the Washington Street Business Questionnaire. I think visiting people in person, that was some of the comments before. They wanted to see that face-to-face, but then following up with mailing and an email would be great, because sometimes people aren't available to talk when you're swinging by, but at least the attempt would be really nice. And they wanted to see the city staff as well. Mm-hmm. So that would be great for that. My other question is, with the questionnaires, there were some good points and there were some items about making things better for the EDA. James, would that be something where us as a group, EDA, could kind of look into that a little bit closer and come up with suggestions to kind of be proactive on some of those comments?
Yeah, I know some of the comments where they weren't sure what, maybe the EDA does or some of the services they offer. I know that's going to be kind of a big part of what we're doing this year with the slogan, branding, website, and then eventually marketing the EDA. So I think we are going to be kind of covering some of those concerns that they had where they didn't really know what the EDA does or what the funding opportunities were. I think that's going to be covered with our framework and our consultants this year.
My question is, should we have a meeting just with the ADA to go over that in detail? I just don't want all this work to go through and then us not address some of the items on there, positive or corrective.
Yeah, I think we could, the EDA could certainly go through some of those corrective items. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Wondering if we are going to come together as a group. Like, I don't know the process, so I don't know the right terms, but a special meeting where we kind of brainstorm on how to.
Yeah, we could maybe do a workshop, something like
Yes.
that. You know, a brainstorming session, workshop that, you know, we're bringing some of these comments together and kind of, the city can bring examples of alternative funding ideas, and then the group can sit down maybe as a whole and you know, really go through those options.
Okay, yeah, I just want to be proactive on all the documentation that Bladek is submitting to us. I want to be proactive on what's working, what we need to fix, and just be positive on the documentation we've been requesting.
And with that, I guess, and the EDA could discuss this, you know, would that be better in a workshop setting or as part of a regular meeting? And that's something you guys could discuss. Workshop does provide for a little bit more dialogue.
I would say workshop, but that's my opinion.
Town hall, let's invite them all in.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please.
So just for our purposes, if you guys can, you know, take an opportunity to just go through this form at your leisure, and if there's, you know, we're open to suggestions. Like I said, this is our first crack at something like this, but we've pulled a lot of information from some other communities that have dealt with this, and MnDOT has actually, you know, they have a lot of tools out there that are geared towards, you know, helping businesses survive through these processes, and how to help a business be successful during this type of project. So if there's just any feedback that you'd like to provide for us, we're open to whatever you have, and just if you want to give that to us, that'd be fantastic. Otherwise, we'll go with what we've got, but I'm certainly open to, we're as a group are definitely open to suggestions. But Tony, to your point, the visits face to face, it's miles different. It's miles different, and we know that. So, and we like doing it now. So, but if you could, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, please.
I would second the idea of just having a workshop to discuss this in more detail, and what might be helpful is just having, excuse me, some top line data on like how many interviews were done, like the breakdown of the business sizes, because when we see these comments of like, you know, people want to see more funding in other areas, it'd be helpful to know what locations are those businesses in, how many businesses are reporting that, so we can kind of get a sense of, you know, how many people are feeling that way. And then my biggest concern, or one of my concerns, was in one of the comments, was just somebody had applied, sounded like they'd applied to the EDA to be a commissioner and had some issues. So it might be, part of that workshop might be good to look at our process for applying. And I know it's pretty restrictive of like who can be on the commission. Like, for example, if you have to either own a business or live in Brainerd, but if you like say work at a business in Brainerd but live outside of Brainerd, you can't be on the commission. So I don't know if it's worth discussing those sorts of rules for who can be on the commission. But yeah, I just second the idea of having a bigger discussion around this, and I agree a workshop would be a good format to do that.
Very good. Any other, yeah, please, Gabe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. I didn't realize we were doing both Washington Street and the retention visits. So I have a couple of questions on the retention visits. How many of these businesses that you visited in 2022 were also businesses you visited in 2021?
None.
Not CTC?
We did CTC in 2022.
Because it seems like a number of them have been visited before, and we're just kind of rolling through your board members time and time again. We're just hearing the same 6 voices when maybe there's 600 businesses in Brainerd that could have a voice that we would like to hear. So I think more diversity in the businesses, instead of just going back to your board members saying they don't know what the EDA does, which we fund their organization to the tune of $35,000 a year. Maybe you could remind them that. But a more diversity of the business interests, because we don't name who they are, but I could name 3 or 4 of these businesses pretty easily, just based on their comments.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. So let's break this apart in two parts. We have two conversations kind of going on here at once. We have the conversation regarding the questionnaire and hitting the streets on Washington. So let's get through those questions first, and then we'll cycle back to the comments that we received, just so we can clean this up a little bit, get a little direction. So first, let's just get through the questionnaire, make sure and give Tyler some direction. I think he's looking for some direction on whether we should concentrate that to just Washington Street, and also if there's any thoughts on any other questions that should be on there. So if we can, let's work through that first, and then we'll cycle back to the second portion. So I have a couple questions or comments if nobody else does.
Mine aren't about Washington Street.
Okay, so first one I have is just, I think that if we are going to go out and have an applicant or have a questionnaire filled out, to play off Mr. Johnson's point, yeah, let's get see if there's any other questions from any other city entities that might be great to just slip in there. If we're going to go through all of this work, I would just like to see if we can maybe even have James on the community development side, see if there's a question that could be slipped in that would help him with something. I was just going to point out that to me, it seems like the questions in here that are geared towards challenges really seem to be focusing in on the actual construction project, but I'd also just love to see a question in there is what are your challenges outside of that? What is preventing you from growing your business on the 210 corridor? What are your obstacles? Is it staff? Is it money? Is it parking? Is it what, blah, 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 blah. So a more global question on what is your challenge for growth in that corridor. But other than that, those are just my comments on the questionnaire portion. And then I think follow-up was to that was Tyler's looking for some direction on whether to focus on in just the 210 Washington area, correct?
Yes.
And are we feeling that we want to focus on 210, right? We're giving him, okay. Anybody have a different opinion on that? All right.
I was just gonna say, I think 210s should be the focus, but if it's possible to still do a couple outside, just to, again, keep tabs on other, I don't know if this is separate from the business retention interviews that Playdeck's already doing, but it's making sure we still get a little bit of feedback from people outside of that corridor.
Right. Mr. Kramvik?
Yeah, and staff will be conducting 10 of them, and the staff will be taking more of a kind of a global approach to it. So we'll probably not focus on Washington Street because Bladeck's doing it, so we'll be visiting other ones around the community.
Fantastic. All right. So you guys feel like you got your direction on that first part? Okay. So now we'll switch over any comments anyone has to the questionnaires and the responses that we got back from our community. If anybody has any thoughts, please.
Just to reiterate, I would like to set up a workshop if we could get that rocking and rolling, just to address in detail some of the pros and cons of the comments.
Very good. Do we want to pick a date today? Do we want to do a doodle poll kind of thing? Yep, please.
Maybe pick a month and then we send a doodle poll out. Do we want to do it after the June 2nd meeting or before it?
You said after June?
Do you want to do it before?
Yeah, I'm thinking before or after the June meeting.
So our regular EDA meetings in June, and then we would typically be off for a month in July, so should we try for sometime in July?
I think that would work.
Yeah.
Works for me. All right. All right, so it looks like we'll have a workshop coming. Everyone will be expecting a doodle poll. And any other comments on feedback that we received back from community?
I just have one more comment.
Yeah, please, Mr. O'Day.
So aside from expanding something like River to Rails to our main streets, I did take that comment, what is it? The city staff and council and EDA, no one has ever stepped foot in their building. I don't see it right now. It's from a company that makes windows and doors. I'm guessing it's Lexington. And I thought that's a good first step to start those relationships is maybe we should get together as a group at some point, 1, 2, 3 businesses a year, some of our bigger employers, get to know them, step foot inside, take a tour, half an hour, whatever they want to do, just so we can see the operation, see what's actually happening in our town, who are our biggest employers and what do they need. Just something for that workshop that we should maybe discuss.
Any other comments? I just wanted to say, yes, based on the comments that I saw coming back, I think we're absolutely doing the right thing with some version of a website. I think just putting a face to what we do this is going to help a lot with just, the public's opinion of what exactly the EDA's initiatives are and what we're trying to do here. So I think we're going in the right direction. It's going to take a while to get there, but I feel like the momentum's going the right way. Any other thoughts? Okay, very good. Everyone have what they need for you guys? Okay, we're going to move on to item 6B. This is a discussion on Westwood Mobile Home Park. Please, James.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the EDA, as part of their action steps, included researching possibilities of redevelopment for Westwood Mobile Home Park. Staff has provided a report on the existing conditions of the park and the required steps needed for either the owner, a developer, or the city to close the park for future redevelopment. So as a note, I do want to let the EDA know that the park is currently for sale. There's, I think, been about 3 people that have reached out to the Community Development Department about it. Really, their concerns about it is its non-conformance status. So I'll discuss that part a little bit here. The park is currently zoned TN2, which is Traditional Neighborhood 2 zoning district, which does not allow for manufactured homes. New manufactured homes cannot be installed on, I think there's 2 vacant lots within the park, and any replacement of existing manufactured homes have to be the exact same size or smaller, which does prove a challenge, as most of the new manufactured homes are at least 2 feet wider. So I know that's kind of a concern in there, and does make replacement difficult. So staff did also provide a link to the state statute, which provides a lengthy statute for the closing of parks, but also within this document, I did provide a summary. I'll just kind of go with a brief overview here. There is a 12-month time period for notification, and a public hearing is required. Essentially, a mailer is sent out to all the residents there. They're notifying them that there'd be a public hearing. They can come and voice their concerns. Displaced residents, if the park is going to be closing, are paid from a Minnesota Manufactured Home Reallocation Trust Fund. The governing body of the local government authority may also require that other parties, including the local government authority, but excluding the owner and its purchaser involved in the park closing, provide additional compensation to residents to mitigate the adverse financial impacts of the park closing upon the residents. So with that, I certainly answer any other questions, but staff at this time recommends these parcels remain legal non-conforming in the TN2 district. Certainly they do have to adhere to the property maintenance code. Future development potential does allow for mixed use or multifamily residential development as part of the TN2 district. So I think over time, I think this would be a great opportunity for this site, and it is appropriately zoned. But at this time, staff does not recommend any master planning of the site, as there is considerable process for converting parks for redevelopment. And certainly can answer any other questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Anyone have any questions here for James? Please, Mr. O'Day.
I'm wondering how long it's been for sale and what's the price? Where is it listed?
I've tried to look online. I'm not sure where it's listed, but I think I've been fielding calls for about a month at this point.
You haven't heard anything on the number?
I haven't heard anything on a number.
So it's just kind of for sale by owner?
Yep.
Interesting. Well, this should be put on our list if the owner is looking to sell. I think we should add this to our list that we've had with Haskamp in order to help.
Just to let it know that it's out there.
Right.
Yep.
If somebody wants to come in and buy the land and redevelop it into something else, they're free to help these people either move into the new homes that are put in there or help them find somewhere else, correct?
Yep.
There's nothing illegal about that for them to do.
Yep, I think so once they purchase it, they have to disclose immediately that that's their intention to close the park. I think it may bump up to an 18-month project at that point if it's purchased as a redevelopment. But that would be possible.
Okay.
Please.
I do have a couple questions. First off, when you say there's a trust fund and other funding, would it be enough to move their home to another park if they wanted to? Is it sufficient? Like, that would be question number one. Is the money enough to be sufficient for them to move to another location? And number two, has anyone reached out to the residents to see that if the funding was sufficient, would they even be interested in moving? And if all of them say yes, then I think that city's answer might change. But
We
I
have not
think
sent out
asking-
any type of mailer.
Okay.
I do know that we do have two other manufactured housing districts within the city. Those are zoned for that, so they're able to move into those lots. I do know that those are full. Right now, they're usually, where they move maybe one or two in per year with replacements, but those typically are full. So, you'd have to look maybe probably elsewhere, probably wouldn't be within the city of Brainerd. So that, could certainly impact the financial burden of moving the homes.
Yeah, I just don't want to take away anyone's home, especially where we're in a housing crisis. But finding out whether or not the money that is being given or potentially could be given, is it enough to help them move to a new location? And are they interested in moving to a new location? I think are two questions we should ask and find out.
Okay.
Mr. O'Day? Oh, sorry, Gabe.
Gabe, go ahead.
Gabe, please.
Thank you. So I have a couple things. One is my understanding of the initiative from the Economic Development Authority we wanted to report on how feasible it was to redevelopment this property. I think we wanted to target this property for redevelopment. So this is great, James, the initial research you've done here, but what I would like to see is the city to have all of its ducks in a row for if it's redeveloped, we know exactly what the numbers are or were at a point in time, July of 2023. And then we can help a redeveloper move along as smoothly as possible. Because if it's an 18-month process, we don't want to waste 3 months figuring out what we need to do when we could have done that work ahead of time.
Okay.
And I agree with Commissioner O'Day that perhaps we work with Swanson Hascamp to have her reach out to this property owner, discuss his interest in selling to a developer for redevelopment potentially. And I know since we don't have site control, we can't build an apartment building there or a hotel or 2 more sheets of ice. I don't know. We can't do it, but maybe somebody else wants to.
Okay.
And if we can have Swanson Hascamp develop another marketing plan for us for that property, I think it's just all things we could do on our end, hoping for the best in the future and being prepared if an opportunity comes up.
Thank you, Gabe. Mr. O'Day?
I just have one more suggestion about that. I think TN2 is fine for that, but I also wonder if is it more valuable as commercial if we rezoned it commercial? Would it be more valuable as TN3? I think it's a good target area for density as far as either business or residential. But I think if we were to reach out to the owner and ask whether they'd like to rezone it, would that help them market it easier or gain interest?
So TN2 does allow for a whole lot of commercial uses. I would say one of the big difference from general commercial is it doesn't really allow for auto body shops, used car lots, that type of thing, but it does allow for all office type businesses. It allows for a wide range of commercial, just not maybe the heaviest commercial type things. But then if you rezone it to commercial, it would stop, potential mixed use development or, a housing complex.
Yeah, I just picture in my mind a housing complex, apartment buildings in that area. I think it would help the businesses in that area if there was more people living there, just like downtown.
Okay.
But whether it's Hascamp or you, James, I think somebody should reach out to the owner and see what they're hearing, what's going on with the property, why they want to sell, what they want to see with the property.
So we did kind of leave it open-ended with the target properties for Swanson Hascamp. I know she was going to begin work on the industrial properties, and that was going to be kind of the first thing. There still is, potential other development opportunities. Parks Department still has to discuss Trailside Park. Instead of doing that one this year, we could focus on this one as a target property for a master plan and have that prepped. So I think that would be a potential direction if the EDA would like to see that.
Very good. Any other comments? Gabe?
Yeah, I would just to respond to Commissioner O'Day's comments, I think as far as the zoning is concerned, I think, James, when you receive any calls or questions about the property, I think rezoning is in order for the right development, and rezoning to a trailer park is probably not the right development, but potentially commercial or something if it makes sense in that spot in Midtown.
Yeah, very good. Agreed. Any other comments? I'll just jump in. Yeah, so if I'm a developer looking at this property and I come into James' office, the very first question that I have, if my future ambitions are not a trailer park, my first question is going to be, okay, what is the process to get this not to be a trailer park? So it seems like we should have an answer for that ready to go. I feel like the plan needs to be able to be rolled out. And in many cases, that future developer is a participant in the financial burden of replacing some of those people. So that may be something that could be played in to help the financial aspect of relocation, moving these people, and that, not just the city's burden as well. So, but it would seem to me that we should have an answer ready to go. This is how we're going to do it, and then the land could be X, Y, and Z. But Gabe's point as well, I think if a potential developer comes in, you should have not only that answer, but also a secondary follow-up with this would be the steps for future development. This is what we see happening here. So, and getting it on the website all seems to make sense to me. So this is all seeming right to me. Thank you. Are you looking for specific direction here, James?
Yeah, I think if you would like to have Swanson Hascamp use this as one of their targeted properties to really do a large master plan on it and get that information, I think that'd be great as a motion.
Can I just add one
Yeah,
more
please.
thing? I'm just wondering, if we're allocating resources to doing this, what else does this push off the list that might be easier wins or like properties that are easier for us to try to market to developers? I mean, I just don't know how high a priority that particular property is for us versus other properties on the list that might be easier to target.
James?
Yeah, so I'll answer that. This is kind of my staff report. I know we have looked at the state hospital. So regarding this, staff did reach out to the state of Minnesota planning director for the state property. She then contacted the chief administrative officer at DHS and indicated they did not want to get rid of the property. Previous staff had indicated the previous staff may have spoke with the representative in Brainerd, but they may not have been in position to discuss the state hospital land and conveyance of it. Administrator Bergman did reach out to Representative Heinzman regarding the property, and staff has been compiling research on other state hospital land that has been, conveyed to other cities, and he indicated that he would look into the matter, but that was one that we were maybe targeting as an easy developable area that we could master plan this year. Maybe that one gets pushed back as we're still compiling research on this property.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Strong, do we have Ms. Hascamp on? No. Okay. Excuse me? Just Bergman. Okay, thank you. I was going to say we could ask her to chime in real quick. Any other thoughts?
Well, with it being not city-owned, I think we were going to try to focus on city-owned property. I don't know if we want to go as far as making a master plan for that. I think starting out with just reaching out to the owner.
That it's available.
Right, and see what's the price. I know it doesn't have to be advertised out there, but I think the city should know a few things about what we can do to help move things along there. That's just my opinion. I
guess I like the direction better. What are the easy things we can do first, and then if we want to invest more time in it,
right
later.
And that's something maybe, James, we could just ask Jennifer to just kind of give us an idea of the burden of work, what this might entail, what would be put on the back burner in order to work on this. It seems to me, I've always felt that if a developer just knows that property is there, or that they'll do a lot of the master planning on their own, if they just need to know how easy it is to get that property, how much it's going to cost to own it, and then let their minds go from there. So in my opinion, master planning should, be done to the very minimal side on the city side to make sure that we have the underground there and all of those key questions that a developer is going to ask. But much further than that, I think the most important thing is just letting people know that it's available for something. So that's my thoughts. Okay. Anything else? So we're going to just wait to hear kind of back from Jennifer first before, as far as how much work this may entail. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we got plenty of direction there. It doesn't seem like we do like maybe a full-scale master plan. We'll kind of leave that as she's working on the industrial properties and can decide later. There's potential trailside park that the park department and city council have to discuss, and maybe other city properties. But Swanson Hascamp does have, within the scope of work to master plan an additional property this year yet. So kind of keep that in mind.
Very good. Thank you, James. Mr. Bevins, did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I don't think we want it master planned
No,
at all. I don't think anybody
agreed.
up here is saying that. I think we want James, Jennifer, whoever, to call the ownership group, see how interested they are in possible redevelopment, and then we get our ducks in a row on the government side of what it looks like to make sure, if it's redevelopment, everybody has a nice home to move into.
That sounds good.
Agreed. That's generally my consensus. Anyone disagree with Mr. Johnson's point? Okay, very good. So with that, I think we've got what we need there, James. Is that right? All right, we're going to move on to item 7. This is staff reports. We do not have Jennifer, correct? Or Jennifer Hascamp, right? No. Okay.
Just,
so
Jennifer
staff reports,
Bergman.
please. James.
So I updated about the state hospital. The only other update I have is VCV has been working with staff and has provided a, revised preliminary plan redesigning rather than outdoor storage, housing kind of their crypto mining and data center. They're looking at building kind of one large building to house everything, as well as providing an office attached to it. They are looking to fit that design within the parameters of the zoning code. So if built to the zoning code requirements, they will not need to amend the interim use permit, because that interim use permit was related to principal use as outdoor storage, but they would need approval from the EDA as part of the land conveyance agreement. So I did want to just update the EDA on that.
Thank you, James. Mr. Charpentier, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a few updates. I did briefly discuss that we are still actively engaging with the developer at 805 Laurel. Again, we are meeting with them on Monday with the city staff, myself, and their staff, just to try to flush out timelines, what it's going to look like, what the finished project is actually going to look like as well, and then discuss any additional financing, such as redevelopment TIF, that type of process on when we would look to start that with the city council and then with the HRA. So hopefully getting closer to having some good timeline, but still in the planning phase. We do continue to meet with developers and landowners within the city of Brainerd that have interest in doing something with their land, which is great. Then it's up to us and then the city when we have discussions as to what can you put on your land and try to help them through those steps. So still fielding those calls, which is great. It's, as we look at, development as a whole, some of our developers are slowing down a little bit, so we're encouraged to hear that others are coming to the table with land that they've got available. And then the last thing I would just touch on, as the legislative session continues on towards the finish line, we do continue to hear that there's going to be a lot of money that gets pumped into housing and housing initiatives by the state. Again, until they get to that finish line, I'm not going to put my eggs in that basket, but we're talking upwards of what I've heard is $2 billion in this budget cycle for housing projects. Some of that would be annual budget dollars that would be there long term. So a lot of that I think is one-time funding, but some of that would be for long-term sustainability for voucher programs at the state level versus what we run at the federal level. And we're talking basically doubling our program at the HRA if those numbers hold true, which is a big thing for our staff to look at and what we would need to do to actually be able to implement that. So it's exciting, it's a little terrifying, but there's a lot of dollars that we continue to hear. Now, again, until we get that to the finish line, I'm not going to count on it, but the next 60 days will be pretty exciting, I think, to keep track of what happens down in St. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Charpentier. Mr. Glenn, you have anything? Very good. Do we want to see if Administrator Bergman would like to jump in here?
I'm good, Mr. Chair. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, yep, thank you. We'll bring it to our commissioner comments, questions. Anybody? We'll start with Gabe. I have nothing.
to add.
Nothing to add? All right, very good. Sounds like we're done here, so I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Thank you, everyone.
That's a crisp 1 hour meeting there, Kevin.